Welcome to the podcast, Blair. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And congratulations on a year's worth of podcasting.
It's thank you. I feel like when you made it to a year, it was like really monumental. Because I remember when you first started telling me that you were gonna do the podcast, and you said you're gonna every week you're gonna put one out, and that was kind of your goal.
Yeah.
And when you made it, I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, we'll just see what happens. And then before I knew it, it was already a year.
Yeah, it flew by. I guess it was a combination of COVID.
Right.
But just, yeah. I feel like it was yesterday when we were talking about you should do the podcast. I remember exactly where we were. We were in your living room, and we had just had dinner, and we were talking about how awesome it would be for you to start the podcast. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I brought it up with you a couple of times, but I think that particular night I was like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And it's been really great. So, thanks for coming, because I wanted to ask you just, about the podcast. Oh, first of all, we have to mention the podcast is called When I Grow Up. And the premise is you speak to people, Asian Americans, who are in different professions and industries, and you ask them about their careers, how they got there, what they do, and in hopes of inspiring the next generation of Asian Americans, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
And
pretty much it.
it's such a noble vision and noble cause. It almost makes me wonder, man, what am I doing with my podcast? You know what I mean?
Oh, no.
But no, we do have to give credit where credit is due, and it's amazing especially because I know there are younger people listening, and they are really saying, "Oh, this would be an interesting field to get into. This would be fun to do." So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think everything that you kind of summed up that describes my heart for the podcast, that's all true. I think another piece to that, though, is my desire to kind of connect people with what maybe is out there that they didn't know was out there, but they could be good at, right? So I think one thing that I'm a little bit more passionate about is I truly believe, I know that you do too, that everyone has their own giftings and their own talents and things that they're good at. But I think a lot of people don't know how to put the puzzle pieces together and they don't realize that you can take what you're good at and combine it with a career and truly thrive in the career and love what you do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another piece to why I wanted to do the podcast as well, because I mean, me myself, I graduating high school, I had no idea what my options were. So
Right.
yeah.
And so we recorded an episode where I described the work that I do.
Yes.
And I kind of want to apologize and do kind of a addendum. I don't even know how to say the word. An addendum to that episode. I have to tell people if you listen to that episode, I'm not really I explain what I do, but I'm not that passionate. I straight up say I don't really like what I do, and it's just to pay the bills. But I have to say I was kind of in a dark period in terms of mental health and just work life balance. It was a weird perfect storm of my wife is doing all these cool things. I'm stuck in a job that I don't really know if I like or not, and the workload was there was a lot of things I was doing. I feel because I kind of am I just say yes to everything that they ask me to do at work. I was juggling a lot of things, and I was dealing with anxiety at the time. So that perfect storm I went into the podcast saying, I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to be honest. And when I think about the way that I presented my work, I feel bad to people who might be, because I feel I kind of might have misled people. Because now I'm perfectly fine with my job. I won't say that I'm passionate about it. It is still to pay the bills, but the fact that it gives me the ability to do other things. And, like when I talk to my coworkers, they're really great. Like the work that I do, like I'm having a lot of fun in this new project that I'm in. And I did go to counseling and helped with my anxiety a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do want to say I apologize because almost like whenever I listen to your podcast, everyone's so passionate and everyone's
it's
like
crazy, right?
Yeah, and it's so great to hear because like you grow up watching Friends and thinking, oh, I'm gonna have a job like Chandler Bing. Like Mike's son talked about it, but then even he really likes what he does and like he's like passionate about it. So I think we grow up assuming we're gonna be in a boring job, and for anyone who listens to my podcast with you, they might be like, oh no, like I'm gonna fall into that same dark hole. But no, guys, that was just the reflection of the things I was going through at the time. But I think I can say I'm much closer. I have to be honest, I'm not passionate about my job, but I'm much more passionate relative to where I was back then. So yeah, I want to apologize.
Oh no, I mean, I appreciate the apology, David, but at the same time, I think it was probably worse in your head than it actually was, right? Especially because you're going through a lot of things personally. For me, that interview I thought was great. I thought I learned so much about what you do. And personally, what I took from it was, like the way David's mind works does well for this kind of job. And I feel like there are people that tick like you and think like you and could hear this particular episode with you and I and might think the same thing, like oh yeah, like I kind of think like David, like very like logically, and also like this devil's advocate kind of personality of what would happen, worst case scenarios. And I again, I appreciate the apology, but at the same time, I did not feel that at all.
Oh, okay, good.
I didn't feel that at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess this is to my listeners too. I think I've complained about my job on several podcasts.
Oh man. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's just, but I'm just hoping people see it as what it is. It's just a progression of, my life.
Yes.
Yeah. But so do you mind if I ask you a few questions about podcasting?
No, man, that's why I'm here.
Yeah, because you've done it weekly for a year. You're like a legit podcaster. Because
weird. It's so weird.
Legit. Because the statistic I saw was like something crazy, like 80% of the podcasts created on Anchor, or the platform that we use, they don't go more than 2 episodes.
Really?
Yeah, something, I forget if it was those exact numbers, but it was something kind of crazy like that.
Interesting.
The majority of podcasts started on the platform, they do like 1, 2, maybe 3 episodes and they're done. So you're in a very small minority, having gone consistently for so long. Yeah. Actual content creator. So I feel comfortable asking you these questions. Okay. So as a podcaster, so first question I want to ask, and I kind of did ask you this already at AZ's birthday party.
Right.
Because your podcast is about careers and how people get into them, like what they do. And you're almost like trying to tell people, hey, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, you should consider this career, right? But this might just be me. Because I'm vain. But whenever I choose a job, like I consider a job, I look at salary, So like, have you ever thought about like giving some sort of like salary range, or like asking for the people that are comfortable, like asking them what their salary might look like, or anything like that? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, after we talked about it at Ailey's birthday party, I had thought about that before you even asked me. And I think in the very beginning of the podcast, my husband and I, David, I even asked him like, oh, like, what do you think? Like, do you think this is an important question? And he told me, you decide, right? And I gave it some thought, and because I agree with you. I think it is important. I think for some people, they probably base a lot of their decisions on what career they're going to have based on the average salary of that career. However, I felt that for my particular podcast, I didn't feel that that particular question matched up with like my heart for doing this podcast. Right? Like, I think it's important. However, okay, I have a few reasons. Like, my first reason is what I mentioned before, right? Like, I feel strongly that everybody has gifts and talents, and there are particular jobs or careers or things out there for people to do that they can really thrive in, right?
Right.
And so I really want to see that happen, and I just feel like asking a person's salary in that particular career would defeat the purpose of the podcast if I want people to find things they really love. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then my second reason is, at the end of the day, if you like this particular career and you truly want to pursue it and do something about it, you can Google it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, honestly, like, you know, you can Google anything and find the average salary for that particular career, I feel like. And also, you know, my heart is to connect people, right? So, like, people that listen to a particular episode and they have questions, and I feel like that's something that can be shared during that time, one-on-one, right? Like, it doesn't need to be on this platform, and I think they can be more candid about those conversations in person as well.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like, but yes, I totally hear you, and it's a really great question.
Yeah, no, because I totally understand your reasoning, because yeah, it does kind of get in the way of portraying how much passion one has toward a certain career, if it is, you know, if you slap a sticker price on it, right?
Right.
Yeah, so okay, that makes sense. Because for me, I wondered if it had anything to do with the stigma and the taboo of talking about one's salary, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think as Asian Americans, it's funny, actually, the episode that came out today on When I Grow Up is with the she's a recruiter, a job recruiter, and we talk about salary.
Oh.
And how it is a little bit kind of a touchy subject, right? Because, like, for those of you that don't know, when you go into a larger company, they ask you, like, so what do you want your salary to be, right? And I think as a first time, when that happened to me, not only as an Asian American, but just someone that got my first job, I was really like, what is this question? Like, you want me to tell you how much to give me, right? Like, but yeah, I mean, I think you're not wrong in asking that, you know, because there's this weird tension, right? And I think it's a mixture of, like, pride and also, like, none of your business, you know? But yeah, that's not the reason, but I would be lying if I said it didn't cross my mind, right? Like, I think I really respect the people that come on my podcast and give me their time just as much as you do. And I don't want to offend them. Yeah. But I think at the end of the day, the reason I gave before truly is my genuine reason. Because, yeah, it would just, for me, defeat the purpose of people finding a job that they could really love. Yeah. And, you know, actually, I've had a lot of guests on tell me, like, doctors, lawyers, and the people you think would make a ton of money, right, are known to make a lot of money, they all say the same thing. If you're doing this for the money, don't do it. Especially the doctors. Yeah. They're like, that's not a reason to do it, because it's not worth it for a lot of them, right? But then, thankfully, my guests truly love what they do, and it's not about the money for them.
Yeah, dude. Was it Stan Sonu who said that?
Yes.
I remember him saying that. Was it in your first episode? I wonder, did she say that, the pediatric doctor?
She said that too. Right. And then also, I have a cousin who's a district attorney, and she also said it's not for the money. There's another one. Oh, I had a guy that works for Lockheed Martin, and he said, "Yeah, you shouldn't do this for the money." So it's like, guys that probably make good money, but
Yeah. I will say this. If you listen to my episode, you could do it for the money. No, especially if you put in the work early on and you get yourself like to a certain level by proving that you can do the work. I mean, and I'm talking like years, like the first like 5 years. If you work really hard and you get to a place like me, you can kind of chill a little bit. And you can,
I mean, and then, that's worth it, to be able to chill like that. And also, like, and again, not everyone, I get it. Not everyone thinks like me and thinks like my guests. And some people just want it for the money. And that's okay too. And then they can find jobs that are like yours.
Yeah.
And work hard and be able to chill, after a little while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, because it's interesting to me and I will say this, in the industry that I'm in, like consulting and engineering data analysis, like what you do at a single company is so transferable to other companies that I see a lot of my peers just whenever they want to pay bump, they move companies. Like it's very like I want to say 2 years average. People work at a company 2 years and then they're like, I'm sick of this. I'm gonna go somewhere else and they'll pay me more. So the driving factor, I see a lot of my like coworkers, a lot of people that I like graduated college with and things like that. A lot of them are going to like Amazon, and you hear about how notoriously bad the working conditions are. And granted, that's mostly for the warehouses, but even for like corporate jobs, I hear like the culture is very like difficult.
Wow.
But a lot of them end up just going there, right? And it's basically because Amazon pays, apparently they pay like 20, 30, 40, maybe $50,000 more than other companies can. Like if they need you, like they just throw cash at you.
That's crazy.
It's really crazy. And it's actually been difficult for other companies, I hear, in this industry because like they can't compete with the amount of money that Amazon can give. A lot of people have hard time recruiting people. So even my company, we're like really focused on how to recruit better because like a lot of our candidates are being sucked away by Amazon.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's.
Oh my goodness.
I am a vocal anti-Amazon guy. Like, I mean, they do some good things and, make our lives easier, but in just so many different ways because of just the size of their company, if they choose to, they can just wreck other people's livelihoods with like a snap of a finger.
Oh, man, I believe you. And I'm like, what do? I love Amazon.
Exactly. What can you do? Like it's the cheapest, You know what's really crazy? Some products that they sell on Amazon, if you go to the company that produces that product, if you go to their website, it's actually more expensive to buy the product on their website than it is to buy it on Amazon.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So,
how do they do that?
So I think what it is they intentionally make things cheaper on Amazon so that they can get more popular on the platform so that they pop up more. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just mind-blowing to me. And, you get it much faster if you buy it through Amazon. So,
sure, yeah.
Like sometimes you don't have a choice. You know
right.
what I mean?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much the main reason I love Amazon is because how fast it is.
Yeah.
And I don't have to go, with 2 kids, I don't have to go out and get it and, unbuckle 2 kids from the car seat, rebuckle them in if I go to somewhere else. And, yeah, I mean, it's convenient.
Taking over. But anyways, all that to say, like when I think about moving jobs, the conversation is always around salary. Yeah, so that's why it's actually refreshing to hear about like your guests and the work that they do. Yeah. And them saying like I really love it. Like the most recent one that I listened to was the one with Mike Sohn.
Right. Yes.
And he's just like he's such a cool guy. Like he's just like I can think logically and like I really enjoy because I actually thought, for whatever reason, I had this view of him that he was in this really like glamorous IT role. So
Okay.
I thought he graduated with, you know, computer science. Like he had his whole life planned out and he knew exactly what he was going to get into and all that. Right. But like when I listened to his podcast,
Yeah, it's not that.
yeah, it's like, oh, I did this. I didn't like this. And, you know, like, so it's like, that's another thing I really like about your podcast is that people who seem to have everything together, they don't. But then like, they just like, they keep at it and then they get to the place that they need to be, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like one of the biggest things I've learned about people, and I've been blessed to hear about, is just like, because I'm such a planner. I like plan everything, and yes, a lot of things in my life have never gone according to plan, but it's not just me, you know, and I meet planners and non-planners, but I have found, you know, they've figured out a place where they need to be and left it to, if you believe in God, they left it to God, or just, you know, open doors for a lot of people. And it's not even, I hesitate to say this for my youth group, but it's not even really about school at that point, you know, like it's just trusting the next step. Yeah. So, yeah. You know, real quick, to speak on the whole salary thing too, I think it's interesting to hear that people from your company is moving, and it's based off of salary mostly. But, you know, I actually had a conversation with David tonight, my husband, just about jobs in general. And, well, my husband and David's wife actually work at the same company. And it's a great company, but I think one of the things that a perk that David found to be really valuable during COVID was working from home, right? And so he's not able to do that. It's a little bit more of an old school company, and I think he just finds it more efficient actually for him. And there's a lot of older people at their company, so I think for a lot of people there, it's inefficient for them to work from home. Yeah. All that to say, we are talking about, you know, just the benefits of maybe exploring other jobs. He's not. He's going to stay at the company. But what I was trying to get at was, you know, at the end of the day, like, oh, then what is important to you, right? Like, right? Is it worth going to another company and making more money, but sacrificing other things, right? And working harder, or not really loving your life, or, you know, those kind of things. Is that worth it? To some people it is, right? And, and to some people it's not. So I think that was one thing Dave and I were talking about tonight, was like, I mean, there are pros and cons to wherever you are, but, you know, you have to realize and evaluate what's important to you and your family. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, and even for me, though, if someone offered me a job where I do the same thing, but I get paid more, but I have to go into the office, I would decline. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, like, especially as a parent, working from home, it's so many pluses.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, because especially with how expensive childcare is, yeah, and like for lunch, being able to go see your kid every time you eat lunch, that's a game changer.
Yeah. For sure.
And you know, so on David, I actually wanted to ask you, how is it interviewing your husband?
Oh my gosh, David. Okay, so funny. Okay, so actually, we did it twice.
Oh yeah.
Because, okay, it was really hard the first time. First of all, the first time we recorded, it was like only 30 minutes. Because I think it was really hard for me to ask him questions without assuming the answers, right? Like, I already know everything, right? So it's like hard for me to like know exactly what to say and what to talk about because I already know the answers. And then him too, he's already assuming I know things. Right. And it was hard for him to like articulate and explain everything well in a way that someone that has no idea what structural engineering is to me, right? So we did it twice. And the second time was like a ton better, and that was the product.
Yeah, and there was a moment where like Zoe was crying.
Oh
right?
my gosh, yes.
So wait, did you guys cut that, or was that in real time?
It was in real time. Well, I think he edited it out a little bit just because, but I think the purpose of it, like he asked me, he was like, hey, like, should I leave this in? And I kind of liked it.
Yeah. When I was listening to it, I remember telling myself, oh, I'm so glad they kept this part in.
Yeah. I think he edited just like the time I was gone and running up the stairs and coming back down. But yeah, I liked it because I was like, man, this is our life, you know? And yeah.
Yeah, because I remember it's like it was so funny because the whole conversation was like, oh no, I think Zoe's crying. What do I do? Oh, go get her. Oh, are we gonna stop? No, we can just keep it going. Like, in my mind, I was like, oh, did they know that this is in? But then the time it took you to come back was so quick. I was like, oh, they must have cut that part. But they intentionally left the dialogue in, which is, it is great because as a podcaster, you know, there are a lot of things that happen. Like even with the whole, can I tell a quick story about your podcast that you told me?
Okay.
It was with Christina Martinez.
Oh my gosh, yes, you can say.
Yeah, when you told me that when you recorded that episode with her and what she did, you actually had the first conversation without having pressed the record button.
Yes.
And then so you had to record again.
Oh my gosh.
Redo the whole thing, right?
It was horrible. It was awful. So Christina is my best friend. And so thankfully it was her. If it was anybody else, I probably would have quit podcasting, honestly. But, you know, actually now Zoom, if you press record, it has this...
Asks consent.
Well, not just consent. Now it has a voice that says, now recording.
Oh, okay.
And then when you stop, it says stop recording, right? And I don't know. It was just a really weird day that day. I don't know if I was really tired. I don't know. Maybe I had a long day with the kids. I was excited to see her, my friend. Yeah. And we just started. And I don't know why neither of us noticed that, because usually on the top left-hand corner there's like a recording thing, a sign, and then I didn't until we talked for 2 hours. And then at the end of it I went to go stop record and realized I didn't hit record. It was, and then, you know, my friend, you know, as amazing as she is, she's been on your podcast several times, and she goes, all right, let's do it again. And I'm like, what? I don't want to do it again. So I feel like the product of that one, for people that know the two of us well, I think they could probably tell something was weird, because someone told me like, oh, you guys are like so like giddy the whole time. And I was like, I think we're just delirious, because it was like midnight at that point. But yeah, that was like, and I've never done it again. I've never not.
Always make sure.
I always make sure. Yeah.
I mean, but you know, that's like, those are the realities of podcasting. You know, sometimes you forget to hit record. Sometimes you record and like the sound quality is bad, so like you have to try to edit it as best you can, but you're like, screw it, I'm just gonna release it. Like, you know, like life happens, and so to be able to capture that moment with your daughter, like that was, I thought was like really special, especially because it was on the podcast with your husband.
Yes. Well, I mean, and I think obviously that wouldn't have happened because normally David is not there with me, right? And so he would have been upstairs if he heard her and been able to go. And actually, like, the reason I've been able to get through a year of podcasting is because of David, like my husband. And I mean, I don't have to do all the work that you do for yours.
I barely do any work.
Oh no. Even just like editing and stuff, I like, if it weren't for David, I wouldn't do it. And so I literally just have to show up for the interview and he does the rest. So I'm very thankful that he's able to like see my I don't want to say dream, but just kind of this project through with me. And he has the equipment to do it on top of everything else. So
shout outs to David.
Yes.
Amazing man.
He's amazing. Yeah.
You know, I was going to ask you, where was he recording? Because when you guys recorded, you were in your normal, usual spot.
Yes.
I know that to be kind of David's like sound spot, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I wonder where David is recording.
So he was just in the room in the basement next to me.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you guys were only like separated by a wall?
Yes.
No, I see.
Yeah.
I see. I was wondering, is he in like upstairs? I was okay. Oh, that because that could have gone one of two ways, right? Either he said, this is my original spot, so I'm gonna record here. You go there, or but yeah, I'm glad.
The sacrifices he makes for me.
Yeah, yeah. Because I have to say, like, this space over here is kind of like it's my home office,
right?
But also it's just kind of my man cave. Like I play games, and I don't know if you guys can see here, I work out here as well.
Yes, and you have your posters here.
Colorful posters
yes.
too. But so like it's not a spot that I can easily give up.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah, like for example, sometimes like my brother-in-law comes over. Like there was this one time he had to come over to work here because they were like repainting their space or something, or there was mold. Yeah, so someone came to clean it up. And like being a good host, I could have said, hey, just work here and I'll go work somewhere else. But like I just, as much as I love him, and I do love him, but like it's like it's, I don't know, like there's it's like my sanctuary. It's not easily given up.
Okay,
like
but let me ask you this. Okay, your brother-in-law is one thing, but what if Shirley wanted to come in here?
Shirley often does, and she stays on this side of the room. She often comes with Aisley sometimes, and then she's usually over there. I'm playing with Aisley, but then like, so I was a huge advocate for her setting up her own home office space. Okay. Because it's like, like if it becomes a shared space, it's no longer my space.
I guess.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
So there's a I don't know. I might be just weird about it, but
no. I mean, I think. Well, David is actually really good about that. I don't know if it's his because he's the oldest of three, so I think he's always had to right. be able to share and stuff, and so he's never had an issue with that, and we've never had that kind of conflict. However, it could be possibly also because of convenience, right? Like he just doesn't want to set up another space for me, and so so yeah, it's maybe a mixture of both.
No, it's probably because I'm the youngest.
Oh.
Yeah, I am. So there's my brother and me. So I am the baby of the family. And also, I think because I contain it to this space, that it doesn't spill over anywhere else.
Right.
Like I'm really cool about like everything down. In my head, it's this room is mine, but the rest of the house is Shirley and Aisley's.
And I think that's really healthy.
Yeah, being able to like
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because, like, when we first got married, I don't think Shirley wanted a TV in our master bedroom.
Okay.
But I really wanted a TV in the master bedroom, right? So, like, there were things like that we had to kind of work out. Because my going into it was every master bedroom has a TV. Why wouldn't we have a TV in here?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
And like, so I forget if it was the particular TV or if Shirley just didn't want one or she...
Did you grow up with a TV in your room?
No, but I didn't because my parents are super strict about that. TVs are for games and other things. Your room is for studying only. So the moment I started, the very first purchase I made when I got my job is actually that TV right behind you. That TV is super old, but I bought it specifically to put in my room because like now I can do it. Like I can fall asleep watching the TV.
Funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So like they talk about like John Yoon says this a lot. So John Yoon of the Bud Honey podcast, he calls it a mother trauma. Is that what he calls it?
I don't know.
Mother hurt or something. It's something about like this trauma that you get like growing up. Like there's an unintentional trauma that your mother like gives you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of those. I think.
Because let me tell a quick funny story. Because this actually involves you guys. I don't know if I ever told you guys. So there was one time, Shirley. I particularly don't eat that healthy. Okay. I've gotten a lot better. But Shirley will tell you that I'm still not there yet. So like she like makes me smoothies and things like that to make me eat like vegetables. Like she recently got a juicer, so trying to make me eat like more natural things. There was this one time a few years ago where she really didn't want me eating ramyeon, like instant noodles. Okay, so I said, okay, fine, I won't eat it. But I work from home and Shirley goes to the office. And this was before we had Easily. And for lunch, I just really wanted ramyeon one day. So I cooked ramyeon and I ate it and I did all the dishes. I like threw away everything. And even in the trash can, I put the wrapping of the noodles like under old trash so that she wouldn't be able to see it. And then but then the one thing she saw was the leftover like vegetables from the noodles in the sink, like, you know how there's that thing
the strainer.
The strainer, yeah, in the strainer. There were like a few of those in the strainer. She was like, I didn't eat ramyeon recently. This is obviously from ramyeon. And she goes, did you eat ramyeon? And then she looked in the trash and she goes, and did you try to hide it from me? And in that moment, I was like, first of all, it's embarrassing. And then secondly, it's like, wait, why am I needing to hide the fact that I ate something I wanted to eat in my own house?
Right.
And we were actually, for like whatever, and we had to get in the car because we were going to go to your guys' place.
I remember this.
Yeah, to help you guys move.
Yeah.
And then Shirley like mentioned it again in the car. And then like we got in this huge fight and I was like, forget it. I just turned the car around and then went back home. And I came upstairs. I came in here and like didn't talk to her for like the entire afternoon, like entire evening. Yeah, until like she like finally came up and was like, "Are you gonna eat dinner?" You know, like
right.
So but like I told that story to John, and I had mentioned that when my dad had a heart attack when I was like a senior in high school, and there was a time where my mom just straight up banned ramyeon from the house. To a point where like my friends were smuggling ramyeon in like paper, those brown like lunch bags. They were like and then I would get it from them and then like I would like sneak it. So like I told him that story.
You're so funny. Oh my gosh.
And then John Yoon was like, oh, that was your mother trauma. I don't know if that's the term, but yeah, like it's because of that trauma that you had of like having something that you really enjoyed taken away from you. That's why it was so triggering when like I got caught eating it by Shirley.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. So like I kind of remember this because I remember Shirley texting me when you guys were on the way to our house to help us move. But then she texted back, we can't come. We fought. And then the next day, David was like, was like, why did you guys fight? And then she like told him bits and pieces of the story. And I heard a little bit too. And I was dying laughing because I thought, I mean, like, it never occurred to me it could be trauma, but I just thought it was so funny because it was just funny.
Yeah, no, it's such a silly thing to fight about.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, but I understand it. I understand it. That's so interesting. But as you're talking about this, I'm like honestly thinking about my own children and like what kind of trauma I'm giving them right now because you know I'm pretty strict.
You know,
considering, but
they say that no child leaves childhood unscathed.
No, yes.
In terms of trauma, you know.
I even asked. I had a counselor on, a therapist on, and I even asked her post interview, like, so, and we talked about, I was like, I'm worried about my kids, you know, like I don't want to mess them up, and I know I'm going to. And then she was like, she told me this story, right, about, well, it's kind of a personal story, I guess, so I shouldn't share it, but she basically told me this story, and the story ended with, at the end of the day, like literally, okay, so okay, I should tell a little bit. Basically, this person she was talking about she was saying that they had this kind of irrational fear and desire to like be perfect and like want the attention of their parent, right? But the reason that they said they feel like this is because they have a memory where they wanted like an embrace or a hug from their parent, but that parent that particular day was really tired from work, right? So this person that she's talking about was like in elementary school. And they remember this feeling, but then this particular person didn't vocalize it either. Right? So I'm sure if they just said, you know, Amma, Appa, or Dad, Mom, like I need a hug. I want your attention. They would have given it to them. But then he never vocalized it. They never vocalized it.
Right.
And so they never knew.
Yeah.
Right? So basically the point that she was trying to make to me, no matter what I do with Eli and Zoe, it doesn't matter because they could create their own, you know, wounds and scars without even me knowing about it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, and then she was like, I'm sorry, that was supposed to comfort you. I was like, I'm okay. I'm like, trust God and like leave it to him. Basically.
And she's awesome. She's actually the counselor I went to go see to work out my anxiety. And it's funny because I did talk to her about the anxiety of like, am I parenting right? Because like, you know, like that can be very anxiety inducing. Like if like literally the day-to-day choices. If I give my daughter this ice cream instead of this, I don't know, like blueberry, like am I putting them down a path to like diabetes? Or like, you know what I mean?
Yes,
like,
no, of course I know what you mean.
Yeah, so it's like I remember telling her that, and something that she said to me that was so profound that I've like repeated to people. I've actually told this to my brother-in-law who recently became a father, was that, you know, like as a Christian, you believe in God, right? I said yes. Like, you believe that God is sovereign and that he's, you know, got everything under control. I said yes. And he goes, then why are you trying to be God for your child?
So good.
Right?
That's so good.
So it's like, oh, like that is what I'm trying to do. Like I you know, clothed it in this justification of like, I'm just trying to protect her or I'm trying to do the best that I can. But there is a side of me that just wants to be the sovereign entity of her life to control every aspect. But you know, that's like, that shows such unreliance on God, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Like almost a lack of faith that God is that sovereign God who has everything under control, protecting my daughter.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I heard that, it kind of struck me and hit me. I was like, oh, that's so good. But it does help a lot in alleviating that anxiety,
that pressure, that you put on yourself, really. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, like parenting in COVID, like from like scale of 1 to 100, 100 being the hardest, how difficult was it?
Honestly, for me, it was 50-50. Like, I think it was, I mean, it was challenging in the very beginning. And honestly, nothing changed for my family in the sense of like, our kids don't go to school or anything like that, and they're still too young. But I think just the thought of not being able to go out comfortably was really stressful for me in the first couple months.
Did the fact that because like with Aisley, just around the age when she was interacting with other people is when COVID hit.
Right.
And so we were really excited about like taking her to church every week, you know, because like church community is like your family. So we wanted her to grow up with like, you know, like all the love that she would have received from like all of our friends and like being able to play with like all of our friends' kids and all that. Like we missed out on a year of that, right?
Yeah.
So like that I think was like one of the most difficult things.
Right.
And that was so anxiety inducing for me because it was like, is she going to be stunted socially, or is she going to become like a agoraphobic?
Agoraphobe.
Man, I can't say any words today.
No, you're
yeah, agoraphobic. Like, is she going to become like such a homebody, like to the point where she has a fear of leaving the house? Like,
oh man,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
those things. So yeah, like seeking help like in those times of anxiety was really great.
No, absolutely. And I think, you know, those things that you're thinking, you're definitely not the only parent through this year that has thought that. But, I think one thing though is different between, my situation and your situation when it comes to our kids is, Zoe had Eli. Right. So, but I will say, I believe Zoe's social anxiety has increased and gotten a lot worse because of the year that she wasn't interacting with people. Before then, she was not how she is now. I mean, you've seen her when she's in a large group. I mean, it's intimidating being in a large group, but I think for me, it's very stressful for me to watch her just literally like want to crawl in a hole and like die because it's not who she is. And so I that's hard for me to watch, and I do believe that it's an effect from the year we couldn't see people. But yeah, I agree. I think it's great that you were able to seek help about all of these things, and I think we talked about it a little bit on your 100th episode, and
that's right.
I was very, very not only encouraged by it, but just really my eyes were opened once again to the importance of seeking mental help and health, and that it shouldn't be something that we hide. And I think, David, you've been such a great advocate for our community, especially here in Atlanta and particularly the Asian American community. And I think some of the episodes that you've been able to share about it, talk about it openly, has made like tremendous impact on our circles, right? In our circles, especially within the like church community that we're a part of. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful because these are conversations that I cannot facilitate like as well as you can. And I acknowledge that. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it's so wonderful that we can share in this creative platform together and kind of piggyback off of each other. And if you don't know, people that are listening, like David has really been a cheerleader for me to continue to do when I grow up too. And so, and there are times where like you had mentioned Mike Sohn is coming on your podcast as well. And like sometimes I want to dig into the details of their life, but at the same time, I want to keep it like what we're focused on, right? And so I think it's so great that you can really dig deep and talk about things that a lot of people are not talking about. It's really cool. Yeah.
And did we talk about this on a previous podcast? Because one of the first things you talked to me about before you started the podcast was, like I remember you asking me, David, like when I start this podcast, there's going to be a lot of like overlap. Because like, like in the podcast episodes that I do where I'm learning about people's lives, like, we talk about career and like how they get there and all that kind of stuff. And I remember the conversation was somewhere along the lines of, is it okay that there's going to be this overlap? Have you talked about this?
In person? Have we talked about it in person?
Have you talked about this on the podcast?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I remember the conversation. Yeah. For sure.
Because I was really taken aback because I was like, why does that matter? Like,
it matters. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just like I don't want to step on anyone's toes. And I respect what you do.
And like this, that's what I want to talk about a little bit is, like, I wonder if that's a detriment, that mentality. Look, first of all, I really appreciated you even asking me that, because obviously, like, you're being very considerate. And the whole taken aback thing is just because of my desire to see more voices in our community being amplified, right? And that's also why, like, I said, hey, you should do it. And whenever anyone has an idea for a platform to do anything, I'm always like, you should go for it. Like, I was really happy when David started Worship Break. Like, it's so great. Like, I remember having a conversation with him about him at one point saying, well, if I'm just singing songs that already exist, why can't people just go to that original like song and listen to that? But like now we see like it's such a different impact when you know the person. And also like I truly believe David is like really anointed in like the way that he leads worship. Like there's the Holy Spirit like really working in that. And so it's like when I hear him like praising through, a worship break, it's like it really hits you differently, you know? And like it really does help facilitate in your worship and praise. So like when I see that and when I see him doing that, it's so great. But it breaks my heart to have seen him like question it in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, like I wonder if there are people out there like thinking, oh, I can't do this because of this limiting factor, when it's not actually a limiting factor.
That's interesting. I mean, like, I know what you're talking about. I do think David's like hesitation to start something like worship break was a little bit different. Okay. I think for him, his thing was a little more of a stronghold over his life, like as far as pride goes. I think for him it was more like he had to surrender and lay down this idea of, like, am I going to be hindered that no one is commenting, or like not enough followers, right, in this culture that we live in today. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be speaking for him, but I think there was a struggle there, right, like of, am I doing this to be famous, or am I doing this because I really want to bless people? And I think, in prayer, because I was praying alongside him before he started this, and I think he was really able to surrender that part down, and God really encouraged him and gave him peace that, no, this serves another purpose. And so now, I think, his personality in the beginning was like, I'm going to do it weekly because that's just who I am. And we're both kind of like that. And, but, I think now it's just a little more about priority, right? He loves worship break, and he loves doing it. He loves recording. He loves music. And I think in the beginning, too, it was a discipline for him. It was really good. But I mean, what comes first? Our family. For sure. And things like that. So as far as that goes, I think David's thing was a little bit different. I think you really encouraged him, though. I think both your family like really really spoke into our lives as far as these creative platforms go. I think that also has to do with the fact that we really respect you and Shirley a lot too. But I think it's interesting what you just said about the hindrance of people doing things because, well, what did you say? What was the word you said?
Well, because like for you, when you asked me that question, like if you'd never asked me that question of, am I going to be like stepping on your toes because there's going to be overlap? If you never asked me the question and just assumed that it would be and did it, then that would be like, why? Like, that would be heartbreaking.
That's super sad. Even for me, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm glad but I think, I'm sure there are a ton of people that make assumptions. Because, and don't go for it because of the fear.
Right. Yeah. And I don't want to be presumptuous, but I am open to the possibility that someone out there wants to like start a podcast similar to I Hope They Hear This. And they might be saying, well, I Hope They Hear This already exists, so I don't want to start it. Like, that would be really heartbreaking for me to like learn of a situation like that. Because, like people, I mean, everyone has different networks. And everyone has their unique voices and unique stories. So, and people are going to choose what podcast they want to listen to.
Right.
Like if, I don't believe in the whole, like if there's too many podcasts out there, then they're going to like lose listeners and you're not going to like, who cares? Right. Like they're gonna choose whichever one's the best. Yeah. And so if they don't listen to yours, then that just means that they found something better to listen to that resonates with them more, or that they find more interesting. So it's a win-win, So I guess I just don't like this whole capitalistic like zero-sum game kind of mentality.
Sure.
But like so when you first asked that question, like so let me ask you this. If I were to have said, there's a lot of overlap, like, would you have not start as the When I Grow Up podcast?
Yeah, probably not.
That's so sad. I'm so glad I didn't respond that way.
No, but I think, or I don't know. I mean, I think we would have talked about it more, and I think,
Because here's the thing, right? I can imagine myself having responded that way if I were in a like dark enough place. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, like if I was dealing with anxiety and all this kind of stuff, and like because I'm pretty sure I shared this before as well, but there was a moment where I saw Shirley doing all these like cool things with like soft tea, and and she started Aisley in June, and she's doing like all these really like great things, and I want to be a cheerleader for that, and I feel like I have as best as I could, but there is a sliver of me who is in the back of my mind thinking, well, if she's doing these things, then like is it gonna take away from like my ability to do this? And like with that kind of swirling in my head, and if my anxiety was bad enough and you had asked me at like that precise moment, I would have been I don't know, maybe I'm too like passive to say, oh yeah, there would have been overlap, but I can see myself being really tempted to kind of lead you down a path where you wouldn't have started the podcast.
Okay, so I think if I'm like real honest with myself, if you had said that, I think I would have taken it and talked about it with David, right? And then thought about it more, contemplated, and I feel like I would have moved forward, but I definitely feel like there would be tension between you and I.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, and it would have been unspoken, I think. And if it got bad enough, I'm sure I would have brought it up. But yeah, I think that's probably what would have happened.
Yeah. And so I don't know this. I guess I don't know the solution to this. But it's just I want to encourage everybody to just be like, well, first of all, to bring things out into the open when they need to be, but also kind of just go for it.
Yeah.
I don't think, at least in terms of creative endeavors like these, there really is such thing as stepping on other people's toes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, and I think going back to that fear aspect, you know, if I could circle it around to when I grow up, you know, for me, that's part of the mission too, right? It's like I want to kind of break that barrier into being fearful of what you don't know, right? And I think as far as doing creative things, or even if you want to start a podcast, I think having conversations with people that do podcasts, right, and being open and honest, I think even for us, right, like just being open and honest with people is important, you know, and there's no solution for one's anxiety or fear that is not being articulated or talked about. But I think what you said, I mean, like, if you feel passionate about something or you feel like doing something, like, you should just do it, because honestly, it's so cliche, but truly, like, tomorrow is not promised to you. And I'm learning that more and more as we grow older, right? So yeah, and I say this and I'm like preaching to myself too, right? But yeah, I mean, it's hard, it's intimidating, right, to start new things. And I think even me coming to you during that time and maybe even seeking some approval, right, and like being like some blessing, maybe even, because from the outside, right, and from the inside, but like you do such a great job, right? And so it's like,
thank you.
It's like, oh, like, can I do a good job too? But like, it's all these things mixed into that. So yeah, I think just being me coming to you and just kind of sharing my thoughts openly, I think helped in me just moving forward and starting the podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I do have to say this. A few minutes ago, you mentioned that like you guys look up to me and Shirley, and like you respect us enough to like ask us or like to accept the encouragement we give you guys.
Of course, yes.
That's so funny because we feel like it's the other way around. Like,
What?
like whenever, like, yeah, we've worked together. Like, we've been friends and like we've done things together for so long. Like, when we think about like Servants Network and things like that,
Yeah.
like, because like Servants Network, me and Shirley were mostly just kind of there, but you like leading like all those like prayer nights and like David leading worship, we were always like, oh, like they're so good at what they do, you know? So
By God's grace alone.
yeah. So like when you talk about encouragement from me, I think it was more just my curiosity of why aren't you guys already doing it? Like you're so great at it. So like
We're fearful too. Intimidated, yes.
yeah, so for you to have accepted it as encouragement, I'm thankful for that. So humbled. But yeah, it's just interesting how the unspoken things, right?
Yes.
Like the way that we view people, it's like, yeah. Hey, do you have a hard stop?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I'm good.
I have a few more questions.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, man. The issue with it's not an issue because I like it, but the issue with having these unscripted conversations is it kind of goes everywhere, and especially with someone like you. I feel so comfortable like talking about these things, and like you're like a natural facilitator as well, being a podcast host. Like, like I like feel so free to like.
Yeah, I mean, like I definitely will say. How can I say this? So I tell people sometimes. I mean, it might be different for you though, because a lot of your podcast episodes, I think there's this flowing conversation, right? And you're not talking about one particular thing. But I think for me, I feel the need to kind of stay on topic and ask specific questions about their job. And, I have some people, like, I mean, I'll just use David, for example. Like, he can talk about things if you ask him the right questions.
Yeah.
Right? But then sometimes, like, if you don't have people that are, like, a little more extroverted and, like, free-flowing, it's a little bit hard to, like, have this, like, very, like, natural, organic, like, ebb and flow back and forth for a podcast.
Right.
And so, yes, I will agree. All that to say, right now I'm having a wonderful time.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I remember David, there were some questions you asked and he answered with like one word answers. And then I can like, I don't think you said it, but I can feel from like just hearing between the words that was like, honey, you got to give me more.
And
yeah.
So
but then you guys definitely do hit a stride where like you guys get into the groove of it. I do know what you're talking about. Yeah. Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask you regarding your podcast was, having heard all these careers and people's stories, has it like have you considered like, oh, I wonder if this career is for me? Like has that influence happened yet?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
But like not in like a really like practical way, honestly. But again, most everybody that I've had on the podcast, by God's grace, truly love what they do. So when they advocate for it, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I should have done this, right? Like I'm sold for a lot of them. But there has been, I think, one or two where I'm like, oh, like, should I consider going back to school for this? I think as someone that's worked in ministry for a long time and talked with a lot of people, because that's pretty much what ministry is, right? Yeah. And I think the marriage and family counselor that I had on, not Ginny, but there is another one.
Right.
And her name is Gina. And after talking to her, I was like, oh, like, this seems like something I might like. But then not really, because I don't think I would be really good at I like more talking than listening, if I'm honest. So I don't know if I could sit and listen all day. And then like Diana Doe, who is a high school counselor, I don't know, like I don't know if I'd want to be a high school counselor, but I like the idea, right, of working with students and being able to help them, right, and get paid for it. Right. So those are two that I think kind of are in line with my personality and kind of ministry in what I'm doing right now. That I've kind of thought, oh, I never thought of that. Honestly, like high school counselor, like I was like, man, who thinks of that? But then there are people that do. They dream about it, you know? So
then have other people reached out to you saying, hey, this conversation you had with this person was really interesting. I'd like to like learn more. Has that happened yet?
Yes, I've had like not just maybe a handful of people in the year, and for me, that makes it all worth it.
Dude, that's the dream.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
So do you know if anyone's like firmly changed career paths?
No, I don't think anyone's firmly changed their career path, but it's definitely changed like the trajectory of their thinking, right? Like being more open and hearing stories, and I would even call them testimonies of like people going through, you know, all 4 years, maybe 5 years of college, and then after graduating, completely turning a different direction, and it's okay, right? And like people kind of sharing with me, like, oh, like I didn't know it was okay, and I feel like a failure, awesome. Right? If I don't do what I studied for 5 years and paid money to learn about, but there are tons of people on the podcast. I wouldn't say tons, I guess that's exaggerating, but many people on the podcast that's their story, and they're extremely successful now. And so, that in itself, I think, yes, for the listeners, but even for my guests, I think for a lot of them, they've shared with me how. So, okay, before each interview, some people are more like on the fly people. A lot of these people that are in careers, though, they tend to be more like, I need some predictability. So I will send them like kind of a outline of questions, right? That I tell them, I like preface and disclaim like, hey, like I could ask these questions. This is most likely the direction I'm going to go, but I tend to go off script. So just so you know, but all that to say, they'll share with me that, hey, you know, going through these guided questions really gave me a chance to reflect back on the last 10 years and go through this journey in my mind that I hadn't thought about. And they're really thankful. And I think the platform that When I Grow Up gives for listeners as well as guests, I think, it has been really encouraging for a lot of them. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Good. So you're like not only serving people looking for careers, but even the people in their careers, you're giving them a chance to be like introspective and look back. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
I'd like to think that, and I think the same for you though with the people you have on, but like really being able to champion the guest has been for me a really big blessing. So.
Yeah. Who have you enjoyed championing the most?
There's so many. No, they're all really great. I can't really. I mean, we're on episode 56. I've interviewed 56 people. Yeah. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, I'm like, where did all these people come from? Who did I like? I don't know. They're all good.
Because I know, and this is kind of a special case, but after you interviewed Christina, like I know you were really advocating for the collective effect.
Sure,
being that she created a nonprofit, of course, it makes sense. But that was really great to see.
Yeah, that's a good example. I mean, really, everybody has been so great. But I think for that particular episode, I mean, it's close to my heart because I've seen her the last 12, 15, I mean, I don't even know how many X amount of years, a long time, from the ground up, building collective effect and how far it's come and her vision teams now that she's creating. It was really cool to be able to champion her in that way and just be able to share her story and what it is she's all about was really special for me. Definitely. Yeah, we go back like my freshman year of high school. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you this. You don't have to be specific. But
Okay.
have you gotten like hate mail yet? I know the term hate mail is a little dated, but
Have you?
I have. Well, kind of. Like people who disagree with.
Right.
Have you had that?
I just had one, but I don't know. Like, I think I even texted you guys like after it happened, because I was like, you guys, you'll never guess what happened. It wasn't hate mail. It was just like you mentioned just now, just a disagreement. I think he just had something rubbed him the wrong way with what I said, and he felt the need to tell me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Because let's talk about the kind of psychology of what that does to us as podcasters.
Yes, let's talk about it.
Because with me, it was funny. I had a conversation with Jonathan Choi on the podcast, and during the conversation, we were talking about something, and I said, yeah, I get a ton of hate mail. And then I thought about it. No, I said, most of the feedback I get is negative, is what I told him.
Okay.
But then, like, as I was talking to him, I was thinking about what that is. And I realized, actually, like, by far, most of the feedback I get is positive. Yeah, like, almost 90%, 99% of the feedback I get is really positive. And some of them are from like total strangers. Like I did one episode.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's so great, right? Like someone saying, like, hey, like I really like this podcast episode. Like I really enjoyed what you talked about, blah, blah. But it like that moment stuck with me because in my mind, I was convinced a majority of it was negative because of the small subset.
I see.
Right?
I
so, like, how did it make you feel when you first got that?
I felt offended. I was like really offended, but then at the same time, it's like, I mean, I put myself out there. Why am I offended? It's bound to happen. But I think like, how did it make me feel? I think because I knew about your experience, I felt it less.
Oh, good.
Honestly, because I was like, oh, it's okay. It happened to David, so it's fine. It's fine. Like, and also this particular comment honestly didn't make any sense. So, and I've only had one, right? Like, you have a lot more listeners, but and I think it was just in that moment, like, it was discouraging, and I just kind of was, because I'm a person too, even though I put myself out there, and I thought, and then what was more discouraging was, he's a believer in God, and so I just felt very attacked.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole, because you kept saying the phrase, I put myself out there a lot, but like, it makes me think, are we, as podcasters, are we giving people permission to openly like criticize us in a kind of derogatory way? Like, is that the...
Are we open to...
Because I don't remember signing that contract. You know what I mean? like
right.
Or
right.
is that just... Does that come with the territory?
I think okay, just my way of thinking is, yes, it comes with the territory. Only because, like, I have no control over what other people think or say, and not everyone thinks the same way as I do, and I hate this when people say this, but like, it's a free country, whatever, you can say whatever you want, but I mean, people should be able to say what they want to say.
Yeah, it's true, but it's funny to me because I feel like these are things that people normally don't say to people's faces.
Oh, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, sure, we have a platform that we've created, But it's not like we're making millions of dollars off of it. Right? We're not celebrities.
Right.
And we're not. Yeah, and it's just I wonder what it is about being on a platform that gives people the permission to almost like, it's not polite. Like, and you.
Right. I mean, no, I agree with that. Okay, I'm externally processing now. Okay, so excuse me if I sound like an idiot, but okay, so we're doing a podcast and we're having open conversations with people, and people are listening in, and I think podcasts have this illusion, just like anything else that you listen to or watch, like on YouTube, right? You like watch people's vlogs, like you kind of invite them into this private conversation, this life that you have, right? And it's almost like they feel like they have some sort of say in whatever is going on because you've let them in, is what I kind of feel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, you're right. I don't think they would say it if they were here in person, but maybe they would. I don't know.
I think, like, I'm not against disagreements at all, right? But it's just, for both our situations, I feel like it was more of the way that they said it. Right? It was like the tone.
Like, you didn't have to say it like that.
Yeah, like, like, as a normal human being, there's a social contract, right? Where you behave a certain way, unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath.
Right.
And, it's the feeling of being attacked from the other side of the screen. You know what I mean? Like, and it's as if the humanity, like your humanity, is being stripped away from you. It's been stripped away from you. You are purely just the content that you put out there.
Yeah.
And so I don't need to address you as a human being, kind of thing. That's kind of how I took it.
Right.
And
because you're just this one person in this one conversation to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not true.
Yeah. And for me, and even for your case, I think it was purely based on like one little part,
Yes.
like what you said, right?
Yes.
Without really considering anything else, So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying this to discourage people from like voicing disagreements, but consider who you're talking to. Like that the other person is a human being, and like this, because I say this because like the conversation, like when the person disagreed with me, it was a perfectly fine conversation. Like I heard her out, like, and like it wasn't like we're on good terms. But it was still something that like kind of rang in my head for a little bit.
Right.
Like, I wonder why that person said it this way. Well, it's fine. But like, did I, and and I don't know everything, and you don't know everything.
Of course
I don't
not.
think like no one, I mean, the number one podcaster, Joe Rogan, doesn't know everything. But, like, I think there's a certain level of people assume that we need to know like most things. Yeah. Which again,
on my podcast I definitely don't know anything. Like I don't know anything. But it's, you're right. I feel like critique's okay. Like constructive criticism, I welcome it. 'Cause that's just, we want to be better and we want to grow. But yeah, I think verbal attacks are not okay.
Yeah. Because to prove my point, there was an email early on that I got from a stranger kind of critiquing my podcast. But he did it very politely. It was really like, I walked away from reading that email feeling good. Even though it was...
From a stranger?
Yeah. This person was talking about, hey, like, I listened to your podcast. The content's great. Like, I've been really enjoying it recently. But I noticed a few things that you're doing. And one of the things was you tend to say a lot and a lot. And so there was a stretch where I was very cognizant of that. I've kind of let go of it since. But there was a stretch where I was like, oh, I cannot say or because of what this person said. And I remember in one of my podcasts early on, I mentioned something about, Obama is a very great speaker, like in leadership, blah, 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 blah. And then he was like, I remember you mentioning Obama as a great speaker. And he allows for pauses for dramatic effect, to allow the people to like think. Like all these kind of like really constructive feedback.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But, like, I first of all, I was kind of honored because I didn't think anyone was listening.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm taking from this conversation, honestly. I'm like, wow, that's so great.
Yeah, but, like, that criticism, although if put in a different way, I could have gotten really offended.
Of course, yes.
But because he spoke to me like I was a human being, trying to, like, do this thing that, I'm not an expert podcaster, and especially back then, I was much further from it, right? So I really appreciated that feedback. So I guess all this to say, I think delivery really matters. Mm-hmm. For me personally, like the way that people speak to me, I think is huge. The content can be the same, but the delivery can make or break what I think about you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like just don't vent to us, like just think before you say something. Full transparency. But
So was that your worst experience as a podcaster, receiving that feedback, or is there anything else that was
like, what do you mean? Like
just any aspect of podcasting that was really detrimental to your happiness?
No, thankfully that was the only thing. Yeah.
See, I mean, because you went on a 2-hour conversation with a friend and then had to redo it, but that doesn't even hit the list, right? Like that small comment is what is the worst experience that you've had associated with the podcast. So I think that does speak a lot to, and like why can't we be encouraging to people who do this, right? Don't we want more podcasts? Am I the only one who wants more podcasts?
No, you're not the only one. I don't know why. I don't know. Right. I mean, part of me was like, oh, I guess thank you for listening is what I think I said back to the person. Because I was like, oh, they were really like listening. And so I don't know why. They could have said anything else. Yeah. But they chose to not say anything else but the meanest thing.
And I'm realizing now that this might attract some hate mail, this conversation that I'm having.
Oh, you think?
I feel like some people can easily say, well, then stop podcasting if you don't want the feedback, No,
I mean, like, again, we welcome the feedback. The point is we are human too, and we have feelings. Yes. Just like you do.
Yes. Yeah. Well, last question, because I know this is going really long, but what was the best experience you've had with your podcast?
I think I already mentioned it. I think people just reaching out and telling me that they enjoyed what they listened to, or they had more questions about it, or if I can connect them with somebody. That for me is the best experience. I think there are days, David, that I don't want to do it. And I think after long days, I mean, I'm sure too, after a long day of work, and for me, it's a long day with the kids, and I record at 9 p.m. with most of my guests because that's after my kids go down, and getting myself to go to the basement after, I've wrestled my children to bed and they're screaming and they don't want to go to sleep. It's great having kids, by the way. I'm so sorry. It's not just showing you the bad sides, but and then trying to get myself to go down to the basement to have a intentional conversation. For me, sometimes it's really hard because I just want to vegetate, and I don't want to do it. However, it's on those particular days where, again, by God's grace, a random person, somebody I could know, someone I don't know maybe, will reach out and just kind of be like, hey, this is really cool. I'm glad you're doing this. And that for me is like, all right, then we press on, you know? And again, it has nothing to do with the people that are on. It has nothing to do with the podcast itself. I think just for me, those days can be very hard and tiring. And but the best experience that I've had doing it is just people, even if it's a few, reaching out and telling me that it's made a difference for them. Yeah, it's that's it. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I want to say this. Guys, if you want to support your favorite podcasters or your local podcasters like me or Blair, you know, really just reaching out and just, you know, saying, hey, like, I like what you're doing, or hey, like, I listened and this is what I thought. Like, just those simple messages, I think go a long way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you don't want to support us monetarily, which also is welcome, please. I think encouragement really does help. It does. I mean, and with your podcast, like with my podcast, I talked to Jonathan about this. It would have been 2 episodes back. I don't really know like the vision of this podcast. Like I don't know what the like clear goal is.
You don't? I feel like I know it, but
I think I know kind of vaguely.
Okay.
But like with your podcast though, there's like such a clear, noble vision. And I really think it's amazing, especially because I would have been the perfect demographic in terms of a listener for your podcast. Like I didn't know what available careers there were for Asian Americans.
Right.
And it wasn't like Asian Americans aren't qualified for certain things, but in my mind, it was just I only see like lawyers, engineers, like and not many careers that really, like the variety of it. I didn't see Asian Americans being in. So I didn't know the exact reason, but I figured there was some unknown force out there that prevented Asian Americans from being in certain careers.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
So to see, I mean, someone working at NASA, just I can't even list. There's so many different careers that have been on your podcast.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
All Asian Americans, and to hear about their journey to getting to where they are, and like them enjoying it and being good at it, it impacts me now, even as a person who's planning along in his career.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine what it's doing for, you know, the high schoolers, college students out there who are just now beginning to think about their careers, right?
Yeah.
So when I say, guys, you should support Blair with an encouraging word, it's not just to encourage her because she's doing a cool thing with the podcast. It can literally affect the next generation. It can have a resounding, rippling effect. So, yeah. If you don't listen to my podcast, you should definitely at least be listening to Blair's because, it's just interesting. It's not even about, you can only listen to it if you want to have a new career. It's just really interesting to hear about other people's stories and the work that they do.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, thanks, David.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, before we end our time together, did you have any last thoughts? Anything you wanted to tell the podcast listeners out there?
Last thoughts. Not really, but other than just, you know, I'm in this new season of life and I think just post-COVID, I've had a lot of revelation in my own life and realizing, there's nothing to fear but yourself, like your own thoughts, the lies that Satan tells you and from the enemy. And I think talking to people, right, your community is valuable. And I'm saying that because, you know, I think it's difficult to start new things when you think that, we already talked about it, right? The assumptions that you make about yourself or other people that prevent you from doing new things or going for it. And whether it's a podcast or a new job or just a new season in your life, yeah, I think there are people ready and willing to rally around you, to encourage you to move forward. So yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And don't forget to tune into the When I Grow Up podcast and support Blair and David in what they're doing. David Kim, Blair's husband. Yeah. So yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for listening. Blair, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, David.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you next time.